A couple of days ago, I met with a client for the first time. It is a man, middle-aged, who's interested in expanding his spiritual life. That's always kind of how it starts. And as we got into the discussion, he described his life and a very busy person, a busy home life. He's got 3 children, married. He has a very big job with a large company. And as we talked, it became clear that this is a person, like so many, and maybe many of us, that just feels chronically tired. And in the midst of that tiredness, he really desires to be a better husband, a better father, better at work. And so he came looking for some tools and some skills that might help him to become more of who he wants to be in this world. That morning, I had read in a book an interesting phrase that talked about practicing the art of being still. Practicing the art of being still. And so as I was meeting with this man, I asked him, how many times in your day, your week, your month, do you really feel that you get still? And fortunately, he was able to talk about playing guitar. And even the night before, he had asked for some time to just be alone after the kids were in bed and play his guitar. So we talked about the importance of practicing the art of being still. And as I first mentioned this, other than playing the guitar, he really had no reference for what that particular spiritual practice or way of being might entail. So we talked about that some. Well, of course, this person is not unique. I think we can all relate in some ways to this cultural reality of sort of intense busyness. And so as I've been reflecting on practicing the art of being still, I've thought about it both in my own life and I've thought about it in this work of spiritual direction that we do. And it's so important for us, clearly, as spiritual guides, that we have familiarity with the art of being still. And it's important that we find ways to integrate it into our client work. So as I was thinking about the particulars of practicing this art and of ways that I might help this client get a better handle on it, I thought about the 3 aspects of being human, or at least 3 fundamental aspects of being human: the aspect of body, the aspect of emotions, and the aspect of mind. And practicing the art of being still applies to each of those levels. And so I think many of us have a clear sense for what it means to practice the art of being still in our body. It might be taking a nap. It might be just sitting in silence. It might be actually moving or doing something, but with a real sense of body awareness and a sense of inner stillness. So the ability to be still in body is something that we need to practice and is so very important. And the interesting thing about these 3 levels of stillness is that often we have to start with the body in order to be emotionally still. And that doesn't mean that we stop having emotions, but we're able to be with our emotions in a way that we observe them and are able to have choice around them. It often starts with the ability to be still in body. And so I'll say to people who struggle with emotions, start from your feet up. And to still an emotion is really to honor and respect it. It's not to push it away. It's not to shame ourselves for it. Quite the opposite. It's a way of being with the emotion in a way that really respects where it might be coming from and what it might be wanting to teach us. But then perhaps the most challenging of all is this notion of being still in mind. And again, we're not going to stop thinking. We're not going to stop turning off the machine that is our brains. But there is a way that we can practice the art of being still in mind. And that is the capacity to observe our thoughts. It's also the capacity as a practice to notice the space between thoughts. And that can be a very powerful personal exercise. And an interesting thing happens when we're able to really practice in a deep way the art of being still on all three of these levels. The Enneagram teacher George Gurdjieff talked about the fourth way. And the fourth way is the ability to bring these three centers, body, emotions, mind, into some simultaneous stillness in a sense, a way in which they are all working together, in which they are all in balance together. And what's fascinating and profound spiritually about this ability to come into this three-centered awareness is that it activates a whole nother level of capacities of awareness that Gurdjieff talked about as the fourth way. And I lead fourth way groups where I work with people over 6 months to appreciate this, develop it. We talk some about the Enneagram. If you're interested in the fourth way groups, go on to my sojournersinstitute.com website. So this is very much first a personal practice, this notion of stillness, and it's a very powerful thing to work with in spiritual direction sessions with clients. So in part, we can work with it just in how we structure our session, starting with some silence or some gentle reading, inviting people to be aware of their bodies in the midst of a session. And then we can also work with people to help them in the midst of their daily lives practice stillness and really see it as an art that is crucial to spiritual awareness and spiritual development. And in the end, along with sort of all of the wonderful aspects of developing higher potentials, higher awareness through this work, it perhaps is no more powerful than just our ability in the midst of the here and now of life, in the midst of the flow of life, to just become more present. And that's where this awareness work, that's where this practicing the art of stillness really pays off in a profound way, our ability to move into presence in the midst of our busy and active and oftentimes hectic lives. So, I wish you well as you practice the sacred art of stillness, and I also encourage you to utilize this with your clients and help them to do the same. Thanks for being part of this.